3, 2, and 1. And I guess we are live now. Okay, welcome everyone to our virtual book launch for the newly launched book titled What the Seal Saw. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge that today's virtual book launch is taking place virtually on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of the Kwatsi-Kwatlen, Semiahmoo, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations on the land we live and work on, and we are very grateful for this opportunity. So today we have illustrator Carla and author Sherry with us. Very excited. The two launched recently their book titled What the Seal Saw. A beautiful book. I will grab a copy. It's available in White Rocks Museum and Archives. Yes, thank you. I would just like to make a quick introduction of Sherry and Carla. So Carla, the illustrator of the book, is an award-winning artist. She's also a member of Semiahmoo Arts Society, the host of today's talk. And she has been drawing and painting since she was a child. She loves the ocean and can often be found either paddleboarding or plein air painting near the water, which is a perfect scenery to live on Semiahmoo land. And then Sherry, the author of the book, is a resident of White Rock, BC, where she often takes her kayak into the bay. Oh, you have to tell me about the kayak. She finds herself talking to the seals when they pop up out of the water. I want to know how that works, Sherry. And from her conversations with the seals, she wrote this book. So welcome both of you. Before I forget, yesterday I read that your book made it to the best-selling by Friesen Press, so congrats on that. That is amazing, as well as Amazon placed 24 at children's books, right? That is a big accomplishment, I must say. I am not surprised, though. I had the privilege of having a sneak peek, and it's an amazing book. It's not just for our region. I think it's actually internationally suitable for anyone who loves the sea and children and nature, right? So I will now pass the torch to you. Why don't you tell me what the message of your book is?
Excellent. So first of all, the mission that I have in creating a book is to nurture a love of nature and language in little ones with big imaginations. So that's the goal. I purposely tried to not create a book that had a very overt message. I wanted to instead focus on an experience. And just like that little bio writes up, I take my kayak out into the bay and I paddle. That's my hobby. I've wanted to be an author for a long, long time. And as I was approaching my 50th birthday, it was really burning in me. There's a really big novel that I had an idea that I'd like to write, and I would like to write one day, but it's very ambitious and I have a day job. So I was working with a career coach and talking with some other friends and thinking, how can I bring more creativity into my world? And some of my fellow author friends had said to me, like, Sherry, why don't you try writing something a little bit shorter, some poetry, a short story? So that seed was planted, and I was enjoying my hobby, and I had this experience where a seal popped up out of the water, as they often do. And I'm all alone out in the bay. And I just spontaneously say to the seal, hi there, seal. I see you. What do you see? Do you see me? And that just made me giggle. And I thought, oh, that'd be a good kid's book. And then I went on with my life. But for about 2 weeks, it was rattling for me. Like that would be a really good children's book. And so I started looking up, and I couldn't find any children's books or any books really that talk about that universal experience of when you see an animal in nature and then you wonder what they saw. And so I thought, well, let's pursue that. And so as I was out in the bay kayaking, I started writing the verse. And so every single verse in this book is based on something I saw or experienced. And in fact, most of it was written in the kayak. I carry my cell phone in a waterproof pouch, and so I'd run the voice recorder and work out the poetry and then come home and madly write it. And then from there, I reached out to Carla, my childhood friend who grew up to be a wonderful, amazing, award-winning artist, and said, Carla, do you think you'd be interested in illustrating? And I put all sorts of caveats around it, like, please don't feel obliged. And, here's how I think we could work together, but no pressure. And she was so excited. She said, Sherry, this has been on my bucket list. And so it became our COVID passion project. And then, to your question, Uli, what was the message? The message is really about leading with curiosity, having an adventurous spirit, being playful, and being in the moment and noticing what's around you like a curious little seal.
Mm-hmm. And how did the collaboration between you two work? You said you were childhood friends, which is amazing. So you must have your own language. You talk to each other like your siblings maybe do. How did it work? You being the person who writes, and then Carla, you being the person who, as Sherry explains things, you paint or you draw. How did that work?
We worked really well together because we were both comfortable, and we already had established trust between the two of us. So it was a very comfortable relationship to work with Sherry. I'd like to thank Sherry for the opportunity to let me be on this voyage with her. It's been exciting, and all of my art has sort of an environmental awareness to it. So when Sherry said she had this project about stimulating the love of nature and children, I was all on board. So, and to get their imaginations about ocean and awareness. So, yeah.
So since we are talking about the illustration, why don't we start with a slide here through the screen. So just one sec here. We have selected a couple of slides that we want to share with you. So this here, can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So Carla, do you want to elaborate on this one?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is a very typical scene in White Rock when you go down to the pier. Even yesterday, a friend of mine showed me a picture of her grandchild, almost exactly like this picture, standing on the pier, waving to I think it was birds, but it could very well be seals out there as well. It's a very common scene in White Rock.
I was actually kayaking the other day, and a little girl called out to me from the pier. I was kayaking underneath, and she called out to me and she said, I saw a seal. And I was like, it was like a sign from the heavens, She was so excited. She had just had this experience herself and was calling out to me to tell me that.
And Sherry made it, she said she really wanted to make the child not any particular gender or race. So we really, so that every child could see themselves as this character in the book. So that was important.
Yes, that is actually what popped in my mind. I really like how you two figured this out so sophisticated. That it is about, about human beings. And I think that children, the uniqueness about children is that they are not biased. Unlike us adults, their mind is still this tabula rasa, right? Like it's blank. And we want to foster and nurture an unbiased mindset in children. And is that how you approached your illustrations?
Absolutely, and also the language. So it was really important that I didn't create a human being and anthropomorphize the seal. And so I specifically used gender neutral language. It's really easy to think of a seal as a boy because of the whiskers, but we stepped away from that. The seal has no name. the child has no race or gender. You can't even really tell the age of the child. And that was a process. And Carla worked so diligently on that with me. And we had several prototypes. So we tried that scene with different races and genders. So we had one iteration where we had multiple children on the pier that represented different ethnicities and ages and genders. And then we decided to strip it back. And it was actually a difficult question because we wondered, like, oh, we put mittens on this child and they're in a puffy jacket. Does that kind of set it in a particular season? And then we thought, well, it's far more important to have that universality than anything else. So I love that we can bring that to the book. And we've had the experience of all sorts of children looking at that image and saying, oh, that could be me. And they look very different from each other, which was the goal.
Okay, great. And how educational is your book? Is it something you would recommend for schools to present to their students and discuss the topic, or yeah?
One of the amazing things that's happening is that when we wrote this really, really personal book based on really personal experiences in a very specific location, it took off. And so we find that all these different networks that we plug into have a take, and one of them is the educational take. So I have an aunt who's got a master's in education, and she opens it up and she starts talking about how it's teaching propositions, or how we could teach counting. I have friends who are teachers that have offered to do lesson plans from it. We are going to be doing activity pages, and we hope very much to go into schools to do readings. So absolutely, there's an educational component. And then I kind of like the subtlety of the education. So one of my real mandates was I did not want to speak down to children at all. I wanted to speak with respect. And one of the ways to respect children is that when I was writing, I wanted to use the absolute best word to describe the scene, even if it might be a little bit above their reading level. So there's words like swizzle and scuttle and kaleidoscope, and I didn't shy away from them. And I was thrilled when my 8-year-old niece was able to read all of them. But if she hadn't been, if it was a matter of expanding their vocabulary, that was great, because I wanted to do that. I wanted this to be something where you could be any age and any reading level and get something out of it, and just to inspire that love of language.
So you mentioned that it's for any age, but specifically, is there a recommendation for an age group? Like, let's say I'm a mother and I'm looking for buying a book for my children. What age group would it be suitable for?
We're finding like between 4 and 10 is where we're getting the big hit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the way that the publishers divvy up the age groups for children, our sweet spot seems to be in a category that they don't divide by. So officially, the publishers have said 0 to 7, but we're feeling it's a little bit higher than that. And we're finding that especially children like 7 to 10 in there, they love it.
7 to 10. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I don't want to limit us though.
No, actually, I learned myself. I learned, and speaking of learning, so the whale, you have the whale, and we all have the whale. And I just want to, in this connection, share the next slide that we discussed. Which is this one here. It does remind me. So your book is a very maritime scene. You can almost smell the fresh sea air through the pages. And this this illustration, Carla, reminds me of Robert Weiland's mural in White Rock. The whale, is that an allusion to his mural, in fact, or is this just a coincidence that they look?
It's just coincidence, but I do love his art. This actually was inspired because during COVID, the gray whale would tend to swim past the pier every night at 8:30 because there wasn't as much boat traffic on the waters. And so during that time, that first year, that every night the whale would swim past the pier and really close to the pier at about 8:30. And it was a gray whale, just like this one. And Sherry actually one day had it pop up right besides her paddleboard, and she was pretty surprised by that. But yeah, no, he came every night. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And so my husband and I would always go down and go watch it from the shore.
You asked earlier, Uli, about the experience of working together. And one of the amazing things is that as soon as Carla gave me the thumbs up and said, "Oh, yes, please, I want to work with you," she started texting me images. And I would just freak out. Every time I get a text from Carla, I'd go, "Oh my gosh, this is perfect." And then she'd keep tweaking it. And I would think, like, what I saw 5 iterations ago was perfect, but it keeps getting better. This particular image, I don't think it went through any revision. Like
Yeah.
she just texted me this one night, and I was just blown away. It's absolutely perfect. And I love that it is a gray whale. The bubbles, the text includes the phrase that I just love with alliteration, bubbles and barnacles. And so she's got the bubbles and the barnacles in the image, and it's just, um, it captures that moment of surprise when you see an animal like that. There's always this sense of wonder, and you just can sense that the seal is in wonder of this beautiful behemoth that's come to visit them.
What a great experience you both had seeing the whale in the water. I'm jealous. You should have called me and let me know. and and speaking of the whale and Violent, and his intention was to draw attention to nature, like you, right?
Yeah.
Like your book.
Yeah.
And the ocean and what is happening. There's also water connects people. Is there something in that in your book about the importance of also preserving nature and the next generation that is growing up and how they will deal with climate change maybe as well?
I think ultimately that is our goal. Yeah, Sherry on the very last page talks about harboring a love of nature and nurturing that in young children. And yeah, and hopefully like the book will make the young generation curious about the ocean and the different animals and species, and they'll use that in their play, and that will ultimately foster conservation, hopefully, in the future. Is that right, Sherry? You agree with me?
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, on wanting to make sure that this was a book that talked about an experience, I think like the biggest motivator for change is empathy. And so just the nut of this book, what the seal saw, putting ourselves in the mind of the seal and having the adventures that a seal does, by virtue of that, you're thinking about their experience, and that is part of the connectivity that we want to hold up for conservation. So what affects one affects the whole. And so nurturing that empathy, and also taking a moment to just really experience things. Let's not blow by. Let's not be on our phone. Let's not take it for granted. Let's actually take a moment and go on that adventure and think about what the experience is for all the other animals that share this planet with us.
What a great message, huh? Your book has. It is educational. You mentioned expanding children's vocabulary, and you do use rhyme, just like our previous author Denise did with her tea time. She also used rhyme. It's a very clever way to teach children sentences, I think. But then there is also a strong message behind these beautiful words and behind Carla, your beautiful illustration, which is empathy, connectivity, conversation, preserving the climate. It's this book is so packed with positive and timely topics, right? In so good job to both of you. Um, and then you also mentioned the peer, and we don't want to give too much away. Everyone, you have to go buy the book to know more. But there are a lot of allusions to White Rock, the city of White Rock, right? And is this a dedication and homage to White Rock and what you did? Because we have a lot of books for children and adults dealing with big cities like London and New York and so on, right? We all know about it. but you specifically picked a cute little cozy white rock and showed the pier and the rock and the whale and so on. Is that intentional? Why did you do that?
Yeah.
Why is it?
Sherry, can I quickly say?
Please do.
Okay, so Sherry kayaks and I paddleboard, and we have the immense privilege of living like very close to the ocean, both of us. So we wanted to share this with little ones that don't have that privilege. You know, we want them to see what is out there, what's on the ocean, so that they learn. And yeah, I think that was Sherry. Do you want to add anything?
Yes, thanks. So one of the decisions I had to make along the way is how I was going to build out this story. And so I made a decision early on, just for that age-old adage, write what you know. So I took that a step up and I decided every single verse was going to be based on something I saw and experienced in the Bay. And then when I was talking that out with Carla, she, lit up and said, absolutely. And I know from my work as an artist that people love to see a place that they've been in. And so she kicked it up a notch and she actually put the pier and the White Rock Museum in it. And then what a dear friend, she, without even tipping me off, she was going through my Facebook posts. And every time that I post pictures from my kayaking journeys, she was looking at them. And so there's several pages in there that are taken directly from a photo that I took from the kayak. And then Carla would turn it into an image. And sometimes we didn't even know, but she was illustrating and I was writing based on the same experience. And they came together, which is this like amazing synergy that was happening in the creative process. But I definitely wanted this to be authentic. And so I can tell you that every single scene that the seal sees, what the seal saw, everything the seal saw is something that I saw myself in Semiahmoo Bay with the seals. So just by virtue of that, yes, we have written a very White Rock book.
Yeah. Yeah, because we both know it well. So.
And how long did it take you to create this book, the two of you together, to finish it?
Oh boy.
When did you start and when did you realize, yay, it's done?
So one of the cliff notes that I'm still processing is that this time last year, I was still asking myself, how do I do my demanding day job and be a great professional and also fulfill this dream of being a published artist? So it was less than a year from ideation, from that day where the seal popped up and I thought, oh, that would be a good children's story, which at the time I wasn't even thinking about writing a children's book. When I went from there to publication is less than a year. So it has been a whirlwind. It's been a lot of late nights. And you talked about how we work together. I think a funny thing we should probably share is how many times Carla and I have had to talk each other down because we were going so fast. We each had moments of panic where we were texting early in the morning or late at night. And the other one of us was having to assure the other one that it's okay, we'll work it out.
So you were each other's support system.
Yes. Yeah. We had to make decisions really quickly. Like there was a point not so long ago where I realized that if we went through another round of revisions, we would not make Christmas. Things like that. We had to really get brave at points. So I'm glad we did because, perfection is the enemy of progress and we can both be perfectionists. And the quality is high. It's very, very high. But we could have noodled on it forever. So we had to really be comfortable with saying that this is a baby that is ready to go out into the world and to let it go.
So maybe we were talking about the book for an audience that is interested in buying it and reading it. Maybe we should also talk about the book from the perspective of someone who is curious to learn from you both as an illustrator and children's writer. And Sherry, you just mentioned that you had to make quick decisions and sleepless nights. So there is some kind of a dedication and sacrifice that you both put in. How much would you say was it worth for both of you to put aside, time with your family, time with your friend, or going shopping or whatever to make this book happen?
Do you want to start, Carla?
Well, a lot of this book was made when we had a lot of COVID restrictions. So it was actually fairly easy to find time because we couldn't go out so much. So I found that like, I think it's Winston Churchill says you can take advantage of good crisis. So we did that. We had extra time and we made this. So yeah.
Absolutely. And then there's, these great ironies that are truth, but when you experience them, you get them at a whole other level. So yes, we made sacrifices, we set time aside, there was dedication that happened, but it opened up avenues for connectivity. So one of the things that I was doing at the beginning of the pandemic was doing story time with Auntie Sherry, where I do like Zoom calls with my great nieces and nephews and read to them. And then that morphed into, hey, can I read to you a draft of a book that I read? And so I had my little beta testers, and that whale verse was the one verse that was hard for me to write. I had my first cut of it, and then I started tweaking it. And so I had several versions of that whale verse, and I was able to put them out to my little beta testers and have them vote on it. My mother is just thrilled, of course, that I'm a published author. And that was fun because she was always telling me to get my nose out of a book my whole childhood. And of course, she nurtured in me the love of language and of reading. But, it's been a real connection point for me. She's been along with me in this journey as I've brought her drafts, and she's had feedback, and she's telling all her friends. So there's sacrifice, but the ROI is the return on investment is so much greater. It's actually grown connectivity and engagement.
So you mentioned you are a published author, you are a published illustrator, and a lot of people, I actually know some, would like to be published authors and published illustrators. You two have accomplished that. What does it take? How did you find Friesen Press? What was your journey? There is a creativity. And Sherry, before we started this live talk, you mentioned that you actually work in the tech sector, but you said that actually tech sector is a creative sector. Carla, you are established artist, you paint and you draw, but Sherry, I would have never thought to connect you with the creative sector, knowing that you work in the tech sector. So can you give us an idea of where the connection between creativity and technology is, and then how you as a creative person manage to monetize your talent and your creativity through this book?
Such a meaty topic. And actually, I have, I'm always brimming with ideas. I'm thinking that there's an opportunity to talk about the creative business analyst on the speaker circuit for business analysis and technology. But, if you think about every time that you use an application, like if you got, an app on your phone or just this tool that we're using right now for this conference, somebody had to have a vision for it. And then you had to go through all the problem solving steps to get there, and you're forging new ground every way. And so there's always the problem in front of you to solve. And sometimes you're solving with a skill set you already have, and sometimes you're having to acquire that skill set to solve. Sometimes you have to step in and apply your expertise. Sometimes you have to step back and let someone else teach you. Those are universally applicable. One thing that has been very interesting for me personally in this journey is that, as I mentioned at the beginning, I started to get to a place where I was feeling anxious because I was getting older and I hadn't fulfilled this childhood dream. One of the really nice things about this journey is I've had a lot of solace about that now that I'm at where I'm at, because I was so glad to have my business experience in the publishing. So in the realm that I work in my day job, one of the titles that I've had is a product manager or a group product manager. And so in the Venn diagram of publishing a book and product management, you have pricing, marketing, distribution, project management, all of that. So I had a decision to make early on about how I was going to publish. So that was a gap analysis, which is what we do in technology all the time. And then I had to zone in on which particular publishing house I wanted to work with. That is vendor selection. And for the people that are really thinking about publishing, Friesen Press is a fee for service, which I really like that I went that way. And feel free to ping me. I'll talk details. But it does mean that you're paying. for different services, but it also means that you're paying for services, and so you're a customer, and so you're not in a black hole of having a really big player take your book but then sit on it and never publish it. You do have to own your own marketing. You do have to think about things like creating a sell sheet, or thinking about pricing and distribution channels, which is pretty big. But yeah, just like in technology, there's an idea, then there's the implementation of the idea, then there's the lessons learned from the idea, then there's the distribution. That's the same with publishing. So I do find there's actually a lot of alignment.
Carla, would you like to add to that as a creative person?
I don't really know what to add to all that, but it's been a very educational journey from start to beginning. It's totally different than just putting your paintings into art galleries. So I've learned so much. And again, I thank Sherry for taking me along on the voyage and learned so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Carla.
The uniqueness with you two is that there is a lot of people who are creative and they do beautiful artwork, but nobody ever sees it, right? Because there is no platform, and or they don't have the means. And Sherry, how you just described your journey from developing the book and then publishing it, you seem to really know the business side of making a book, and that's very important. And I think maybe for another day we could elaborate on that in a workshop or something, how aspiring artists, writers and illustrators who want to publish a book can successfully achieve that. And you seem to know where to go and who to contact. And you mentioned marketing, and it's a reality, right? It's one thing is writing a book, the other is the harsh reality to actually selling it or bringing it to the public.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to help with that. And Carla, I wondered, maybe this is for another workshop, or maybe you want to address it now. When I think about technology in this journey, I also think you use new illustration tools, right? You learned a new tool.
Yeah. When Sherry approached me to illustrate, I think the library just opened up. So I popped in quickly and I looked at children's books and realized that I probably have to learn how to draw on the computer. Which I'd never done before. So I quickly learned how to use Procreate on the iPad. And I have to say that all these drawings have been done on Procreate. And this is my, pretty much, so it opened up a whole new world for me, really.
Yeah. And early in the journey, Carla did another really excellent information gathering tool where she said to me, Sherry, just create a Pinterest board and don't worry about whether you think it's right for your book or not. Just save to it any illustration that you like. And I didn't even realize that Carla pulled out of there a palette that became the palette for the book. And then throughout the journey, she just giggled because we'd get together and I'd be wearing all the colors, or she'd come over to my house and she'd see all those same colors in the house. And she's like, oh yeah, you have a palette. And I didn't even know it. So that was really fun.
Yeah, I kind of tricked her. I found 27 colors based on all the pictures that she saved. And then I was also looking at her house, and she really has very specific colors that she likes. So we stuck with those for the color of the book. So for all the colors in there.
Yeah, I noticed we're wearing them today too.
Yeah, probably.
Yes, and maybe that leads us to sharing the next illustration, the one with the starfish.
Oh yeah,
starfish. Yeah, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Can I just say how much I love this? Like, it really, really epitomizes the book. And I love that the seal looks like it's waiting, and there's one starfish that's really happy to see him, and then the other one's sort of surprised. That blue guy cracks me up every time.
Yeah, I actually pulled that that picture of the pole, like I actually went on Sherry's kayaking pictures again and found one where she was kayaking under the pier. She doesn't know this story. And found one of the poles of the pier that looked like this with barnacles and sea and the starfish on it. So yeah, that was fun to do.
I
Mm-hmm.
wondered. And along the way, the heart-shaped nose got more refined. And Carla sent me numbers of prototypes of the seal. Should it be more cartoon-like? Should it be more realistic? And this is one of the images that we used to try to settle into what I think is sort of a mid-ground between the two.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the
Yeah.
color combination is really interesting too. It's you do have different colors, but they all match. They all somehow harmonize with each other. How did you manage to come up with these colors?
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I stole them from Sherry, her favorite colors. Yeah, another thing that I want to talk about is the seal itself. In doing this book, I learned a lot about seals, which was very interesting. I very soon, the first thing I learned is that they don't have ear flaps. Only sea lions have ear flaps. So yeah, I had to educate myself first on the type of seals we have in the bay, which is harbor seals mostly that we have here in BC. So yeah, that was fun.
So one of the really funny stories was that I can tell, I think it's okay, is we both
Yeah.
had moments where our eyes were wide. And Carla sent me some text one night and she said, I've based our seal off of these pictures I thought I'd share with you, something like that, some context. And she sent me real photos of critters in the ocean. And it was late at night. And I look at it and I go, that's a sea lion.
Sea lion.
And I purposely said to myself, don't tell her, let her sleep tonight, contact her in the morning and just approach it gently because I didn't want to scare you, Carla. And then I got up the next morning and Carla had been up really early and there were texts from like 6, 7 a.m. where she's saying, oh my gosh, that's a sea lion. And little children are going to be astute. They're going to question the ears, the marine biologists, et cetera, et cetera. So we wanted to be accurate. We wanted to definitely make sure that we're telling the right story here and with the right well, but that we didn't make a mistake there with the sea lion to seal, but I knew we'd catch it. But poor Carla just had this late night heart attack and we had to calm her down and make sure that we didn't have ears on our seal because that's sea lions.
And they have shorter limbs as well. Sea lions have longer limbs. So it is a lot of little subtle differences, which were interesting.
Very, very cute illustrations. I like them. Okay, so we have a couple of questions in the chat, and the first one is where can I purchase a copy of your book?
Yay! So we are online everywhere. When are we going to put the website for the book in the chat? Can we do that?
Chat. Yes,
Yeah,
Emily can. She can mention.
Yeah, it's just whatthesealsaw.com. Yeah. But from there's a buy now tab that can direct you all over the place. So we're in Barnes and Noble, Freeze and Press, Discover Books, Amazon.com.ca. Lots are popping up. There's ebooks available for Kindle and Nook and all of that. Physical copies are right now at the White Rock Museum. And I will be doing a book signing out at the Magenta Rose in Mission in a couple of weeks. And what I'm hearing from people, it's very alarming right now on all the websites, the delivery timeframes, because with COVID, there's delays. And unfortunately, there's delays that are specific to publishing. There's delays with ink and paper. And then with the BC floods, that's been a concern too. So what I'm hearing from friends is that Discover Books will say that it's shipping from the UK in like 2 to 6 weeks, but I have had people that have ordered from them last week and got it in 4 days. And I think what happens is that they're a global company. As soon as they see that you're in Canada, it's a print on demand. So they print from Canada and it's much faster. Of course, there's no guarantee. But if you're trying to get it for Christmas, White Rock Museum or Discover Books seems to be your best bet.
Discover Books. So is that online? Discover.
It is online, yeah.
Okay.
And that's part of my learning curve. I've never heard of them before, and they look like a really great company. But I am happy and thrilled to announce that it's available through numerous channels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe best bet is to just go down to the Archives and Museum in White Rock and grab a copy of the book, and then you're safe.
Exactly. Another thing to do is on that website, on the whatthesealsaw.com, you can sign up to be part of the mailing list. And then as more distribution channels become available, I can let you know. So we were really pedal to the metal to get online for Christmas shopping. Phase 2 of the book is going to be getting into more retail stores. So I have a dream to be on the ferries and the aquarium, all sorts of bookstores around the Lower Mainland, libraries, schools. So we'll be working on that. And then, there's goals down the road from there too.
Yes, in schools especially, I'd imagine that would be a great place. And I mean, with Christmas coming up, then that's perfect. Oh, there's another one coming in. What day is the live book signing? Oh, yeah. Is there are you going to have a live book signing?
So there's 2 in the hopper right now. So again, I'll be posting and announcing, but December 17th in Mission at the Magenta Rose is, I was afraid I said that wrong, 16th, the Thursday night, December 16th is one book signing. And then we're looking at doing a second book signing at White Rock Museum. Tentatively, we're thinking Family Day in February, but stay tuned.
Great. So we already have two dates, December 16 and then next year on Family Day. Perfect. What more do you want?
Lots more.
Yes. And then there's another question for Sherry. What is your favorite childhood book? And are there any children's books that were influential on your writing style?
Oh, thank you for that question. I almost feel like I fed it to somebody and I didn't, but oh yeah, part of this journey for sure. So one of my all-time favorite books is Where the Wild Things Are. Really, really good memories. In fact, when my son was born, my mom bought me a fresh copy because the one that we had for my childhood was worn through. And part of what I wanted to create in this book is in the middle of Where the Wild Things Are, there's a 2-page spread which has no text. And Carla and I worked really, really hard on that. So we wanted to provide a place in the book where children could make their own text and they could write their own story and maybe make their own rhymes or just explore this page with their imagination. Some of my favorite childhood memories are my mother and I reading Where the Wild Things Are and getting to that page where there's no text and just making our own stories and telling each other. So this was actually a bit of a push. It was a bit hard for us to get this in the book, but we did it. And I'm so glad we did it. And I'm eager to hear back from young readers how they enjoy this page. Inspiration, I don't purport to be as accomplished as a writer as Clements, but the Twas the Night Before Christmas was a real inspiration for me. I wanted to do something like that, or like the book The Lost Words is another inspiration for me. Snowy Day. I wanted to do a book where the language was elevated and where the primary thing is the imagery. And so to let the words transport you the same way that Carla's excellent illustrations will do. So some of us have a real strong love of words. Not everybody does. So I'm glad that, if I've got readers that really like to roll around in language and let it percolate, that my goal is that I've created language that will do that for you.
Carla, you got a compliment in the chat. Somebody said they love the way you use the design thinking to create this great work of art.
Oh, that's so nice. That's great. Thanks.
So there's this beautiful synergy between the two of you. Sherry's words, love for words, and then Carla, your imagination and your distinct style that really conveyed the message of the book in through the visual arts. So yeah. Yeah, is there anything else? Do we have any more questions in the chat, Emily, or don't see any? Okay. Is there anything else you two would like to add, to mention about your book? Is there going to be a second book coming out? Maybe this time with a different protagonist, not a seal, but maybe a seagull. I don't know.
Absolutely. So some of the things in the pipeline, I would love to partner the book with a stuffy or finger puppets or something else. I could totally see that happening. So thank you to everyone who's been involved in supporting us and being part of this call, or maybe listening to it after the fact on YouTube. Ways that you can help would be to help us understand what would be a popular companion to the book. So if I wanted to sell the book along with a stuffy or a little toy, what do you think would be best? And maybe help us in some focus groups with some pricing. That's a vision we have. And absolutely from the get-go, we have been thinking about follow-ups. And I can envision like a big hard copy book at the end of this journey, however long that is, where there's what the bunny saw, what the chickadees saw, what the owl saw, what the alligator and moose are some of the requests I've had from my focus groups. So, and also have ideas for other children's books. So I very much would like, well, I've got one half written that part of my journey was, and it was definitely me alone at the computer at night having a finger wag at myself saying, okay, you need to stop writing the next book and get this one over the finish line. But yes, very much. One of the other parts of this journey for me is that this book is full of S's, and I have speech impediments, and S's have always been a challenge for me. So I just laugh that, oh my gosh, I made speech therapy for myself. But I do have another book in mind that's specific for children with speech impediments, and hoping to pull that out next year.
Would this book be suitable for children whose language is not, whose mother tongue is not English, but they would learn through reading your book or having somebody read for them? Would they be able to learn English, would you say?
I think there's a good opportunity for that because some of the verses are very elementary and very simple. So that opening part where it's like, where we talk, or the end, let's do that one. I love the ocean. I love the sea. I see the seal and the seal sees me. That is very easy, I think, for a beginner. And then there's other verses that are more advanced. So I think it could absolutely be a good entry in. What do you think, Carla?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I shall buy a few copies for my friends' children in Germany then.
Thank you so much.
Yes, yeah. Okay. So I guess we covered everything. I just want to emphasize how you manage to convey this distinct, firm sense of place in your book. It is, and it's so welcoming to have a book that shows the beauty of White Rock and the diversibility of it's nobody really knows about White Rock unless you live there. And it's just I'm just so thankful that you showed what a beautiful, inclusive, natural environment this cozy little city is. I just hope not everyone wants to live there.
I know I want big success, but I don't want to maybe blow our secret too much. But yeah, it's definitely a labor of love. We love where we live. We love, like Carla said, it's such an immense privilege to be this close to the ocean. We don't want to take it for granted. We definitely wanted to celebrate and share that.
And Sherry and Carla, if anyone has questions to you regarding whatever, and they don't have a chance right now to ask the questions, how can they contact you? Through your website?
The website, contact us. We're both on Instagram. So I'm Sherry underscore McMillan underscore writes. Carla, did you want to give your tags?
Yeah, I'm just Carla Maskall art. So, and then website Carla Maskall. Yeah.
Okay, there's one more question in the chat. When you were writing the book, what did you have in mind? What message did you want to convert to the reader? I think we talked about that, but maybe you want to elaborate more.
Yeah, I think, when I was writing, in the throes of writing, I was really focused on that experience of when you see an animal in nature and they see you. And I really wanted to capture that and extrapolate on it. And I wanted it to be sort of that universal experience we've all had, but then settle into it and actually really fully experience and explore it. One of the things that I really like about the book is that we start out with the child seeing the seal and then we end with the child seeing the seal. And so it's this really beautiful synchronicity in the experience. But the beautiful thing has been that in the narrowing down of the focus, it actually ended up broadening it. So some of the other messages that occurred along the way were the environmental, were the empathy. And then just in terms of marketing, like I thought, oh, this is such a specific story and such a very Sherry experience in my kayak in the bay with a seal, like everything was so specific, but then it ended up opening up these avenues of conversation for people who kayak, people who love white rock, people who love seals, and people who love poetry. And so it just ends up, the more you focus in on what you specifically love and experience, the more things open up into a universality of experience.
Yeah, I also think the connectivity with the water, how you use water as a theme, is just spot on, huh? Someone in the chat suggested, because we were talking about where to sell your book and where to display it, someone suggested to partner with Science World in Vancouver.
Oh, thank you.
For focus groups and presenting your book in their shops. So actually, that's a good suggestion. There is a lot of museums. You can also approach the Chinese Garden. They sell books. As they sold Denise's Tea Time Around the World in their shop. And then there's a Vancouver Museum, and I'm sure there is more. Oh, of course, UBC's Maritime Museum.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. I'm taking notes. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, wait, it's not UBC. It's here. It's down on Kitsilano Maritime Museum. And then UBC has a biodiversity, I think it's called. Yeah, so lots of places where, they have children come in and they have educational tours and sessions. And then your book can actually really complement these educational sessions for the children. But again, I want to emphasize, I don't think it's what the seal saw is just a children's book. I really think we all can learn from the book, especially right now with the world becoming more inclusive and more diverse, and us being more conscious about our unconscious biases and how we can learn from each other. And being in a global pandemic, how we understand that everything is connected. We are not islands in the sea, but we are all connected to each other. And that is a strong message of your book that I personally, as an adult, took. So,
yeah. Well said, Yuli.
Thank you so much, Julie. And thank you so much to you and to Semiano Arts for this opportunity. It's just been amazing. And behind the scenes, you've been such a professional in setting this up for us. And you really are an amazing host on many levels. So thank you so much.
And speaking of behind the scene, Michael, our digital coordinator, he makes sure that the streaming is going well. You can't see him, but he's there. and he's the reason why you can watch us. And then our Emily, who is taking the questions in the chat and making sure that everyone is felt welcome. So we are an amazing team at Sanyama Arts, and we make sure that our members feel welcome and heard, and give them a platform to promote their artwork. And then we are lucky to have beautiful artists like the two of you who make awesome art for the community, right? So yes. So yeah, I would say we are at the end of our live virtual book launch. And was wonderful to get to know you and to get to know your inspiration and more about your book and how you work together. And it really shows that writing and publishing a book is not just some, you know, fancy, creative epiphany, but really hard work, hard dedication, communication. You know, the illustrator and the writer have to work together and to understand each other's language, literally and figuratively. And I hope we can maybe expand this in a workshop where we talk about the business side and how to become a successful and accomplished author and illustrator like you two did. So everyone go to the website whatthesealsaw.com for more information. You can find Carla and Sherry on Instagram as well as on LinkedIn. If you have questions or if you have trouble finding them, message us and then we will direct you to them. No problem.
Yeah, thank you, Yuli.
Thanks to Sherry and Carla and everyone who watched, and have a beautiful day. Enjoy the sun and go to the ocean. Maybe you see the seal and have a chat with him or her. Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.